I'm looking forward to this one anyway. It's going to be a good one. Engineering is a large part of Alpha 4.0. It's going to be very important to make multi-crew distinct and to start eventually bringing multi-crew into some sort of balance. I mean, no time soon, but in the next 5 years at least, right?
Engineering, the next major step forward in multi-crew gameplay, built on top of the in-development resource networking system, itself a harbinger of fire and a new reality for all life aboard spacecraft. It's been the subject of CitizenCon presentations, Q&As on Star Citizen Live, explorations on Inside Star Citizen, and fervent discussion by many of the content creators in our community. And on this final episode of ISC before hiatus and we turn all of our attentions towards CitizenCon, we invited Torsten, Bastian, and Guillermo to update us once again on the current intention and implementation of engineering and what you can expect when the first iteration makes its way into the persistent universe.
Torsten.
Resource Network enables us to actually give you the gameplay that you were always looking for, which is having meaningful multi-crew gameplay, which means that it really makes sense to have multiple people running around on your ship, and that wouldn't be possible without the Resource Network.
This needs to be done properly and done properly from the beginning.
That's a Carrack. You can't even access the components on the Carrack yet. Interesting.
So we say the Resource Network is a system that allows all the items and components that are part of the ship to talk to each other.
Every ground vehicle, every base, everything that runs in Star Citizen with resources.
Fundamentally, Resource Network is a replacement for the pipe system we had in the past that you may have heard about.
Which was a similar system, basically doing most of what we are doing right now with the Resource Network, but in a way that was not as scalable as what we intend to do.
Landing.
What? No, that wasn't too bad, but hold on a minute. Gonna have to listen to that bit again.
With resources.
Fundamentally, Resource Network is a replacement for the pipe system we had in the past that you may have
Guillermo's
heard
okay.
about.
Which was a similar system, basically doing most of what we are doing right now with the Resource Network, but in a way that was not as scalable as what we intend to do.
Okay, yeah, it's fine.
So right
I get
now
it.
we just have one type of hydrogen fuel, but if we want to extend that in the future to having like multiple types that have some specific benefits on the thrusters, it's very easy now to add that resource. It's just a data setup.
So Resource Network is the underlying technology for the system to work, and engineering is the gameplay we intend to have on top of this technology so that players may experience it.
Your ship flies because, the thrusters get fuel, the power plants output power that the weapons and the sails and also the thrusters use. Engineering is all about both maximizing the use you get out of the Resource Network.
Oh, look, they've changed they've applied the new sort of MFD changes as well to the engineering tab here. Looks completely different to the one, or at least it looks completely different to the one on the Hercules in the Arena Commander engineering mode that we've been experimenting with. Looks pretty decent. A little bit more, it looks less demanding. It looks more, easier to use, less demanding. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on here. You've got shields, engines, weapons, core systems, temperature. Not sure what that is. Celsius. All the different, the heat of the system, different systems.
And also getting the Resource Network itself going so that you're not dead in the water.
It's all things that players will be able to interact with. They will have to dedicate roles in their ships so that crew members are assigned to fixing those issues, and they can encounter more dynamic situations that will not happen in the previous systems.
The goal right now is to have all the components on the ship being physicalized. That means that the things that will take damage will be the components. That then means that those components are the reasons to the failure of your ship.
We have
that's
the power plants, which generate the energy that your ship consumes. You have the shield generators, which take in some of that energy to convert it to shield power. You have a radar system that allows you to target the signatures of ships around you. You have coolers that generate a coolant resource.
Oh, cool.
It is all the weapons that you have, it's the quantum drive, but there are also new components that will be added to the mix, and that is the relay with its fuses.
Yep.
Then there's the life support generator.
Oh, life support
The biggest thing we
generator.
are aiming for is switching from your health pool of the bespoke ship to just moving that completely over to the physicalized component. So damaging the component is damaging your ship.
Okay.
I think this is the part where the biggest change for the players happen, because there the gameplay of repair comes in, and then you can revitalize your ship.
So does it get to a point, I think they may have already mentioned this, does it get to a point where your components are no longer repairable, no longer salvageable, or can you essentially be invincible as long as your crew is on point and keeping all your components repaired and topped up? I'm assuming what happens is they get some sort of like permanent durability damage throughout the course of a fight. They talk about it? Yeah, figures. Just my first thoughts. Just my reaction, guys. Just my first thoughts. But I kind of like the idea of being invincible if I keep my components up. Just because I'm so sick of the freaking 8 years I've been playing this game, multi-crew ships being nothing but turd.
You can actually use your formerly dead-in-the-water ship after exchanging or repairing the components. Well, we mentioned one of the
Apologies, let's just go back a little bit because I did interrupt that segment.
and revitalize your ship. So you can actually use your formerly dead-in-the-water ship after exchanging or repairing the components.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Well, we mentioned one of the new components, which is the life support generator. So let's talk about life support.
The life
Yeah.
support does all the tasks necessary to maintain the life support inside a ship.
So it's the temperature, it's the atmosphere composition, it's the pressure inside the room.
Don't buy a Drake life support system. Just fills the oxygen with fart gas or something. Or freaking... Is it CO2? Carbon
Your
monoxide?
main responsibility is making sure that
one that
there's
chokes you to
always
death.
enough life support resource produced to maintain a healthy atmosphere in the ship. So making sure that all the CO2 that you breathe out is actually converted into O2 again. Or if you vented a room, that the room is filled again. If your room is getting too hot, it's cooled down again. So it's all about managing this resource inside the rooms. And as already mentioned in the previous episodes, it's life support management is also a good way to counter fire. Another aspect the players have to counter or react to is misfires on components.
Man, what do you guys think about life support? What do you guys think about the life support system being that detailed? Is it more just tedium for the sake of tedium? Is it adding or is it detracting? I know it doesn't matter what we think. It's happening either way. But like they really got to make it worth it. I really got to care. Like I really got to care to manage all that stuff. You better make it worth it. You better make me care for good gameplay reasons. Because if it's really tedium with little reward, and multi-crew ships are not like these big power projectors that are actually worth crewing to this extent, nobody's going to bloody fly them. I think life support adds. It's good, says Modify. I just shut off life support to everywhere but the cargo bay. As a space game, it's what we dreamed of. Yeah, with as long as there's purpose behind it. Got to be purpose. There's got to be some gameplay implications beyond that being the gameplay itself. If that is just the gameplay, it's ultimately just tedium there. Like there has to be justifications for having to go through that kind of those gameplay mechanics. That's all. I guess the gameplay is ultimately you're going to take a multi-crew ship into a fight, into a battle, into somewhere hazardous, and the damage isn't going to be to your hull, isn't going to be to your hit points, it's going to be to your components. So every time you get into battle with a bigger ship, you are going to experience these implications. You're going to experience life support issues, component issues, relay issues, fires, all this stuff that you can have crew ready, prepared to handle at any given time. If you're in a multi-crew ship, you start getting into some form of combat or danger. The payoff, basically, at the moment, the only payoff I can think of is that your ship is exponentially more powerful than a non-multi-crew ship, or a ship half the size, or a ship half the capabilities. Right? I don't. There's no other. I don't know what other reasoning there is. I mean, I'm all for the crew experience. I'm all for the engineering. I'm all for having to deal with these things. It's just they have to be like the power projection that you get out of a big ship, if those are the sort of things you go through, is going to have to be huge. I don't know how else to put it, really. I don't know, like, I'm just trying to justify the amount of work that we might potentially have to go through to crew big ships, bigger ships. They have to have, like, some serious longevity. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying the reasons have to be, there has to be justification for it. These gameplay loops will, however, kill it for the mainstream. I don't think so. I mean, look at games like Sea of Thieves. That's super mainstream. And half of the gameplay for your crew is running around, chucking out water. What's the damn proper phrase for that? And hammering wood into holes and stopping your ship from sinking. Bailing, that's it, bailing. Sea of Thieves is super mainstream. People love that because you're not as attached to your ship in Sea of Thieves. And the ships definitely don't have the sort of power projection I want to see in Star Citizen, but you can keep it alive for a long period of time. And, you know, you have things on that ship throughout your play session that are valuable to you that you don't want to lose. Then again, that is basically all you have to do in the game. That is the gameplay loop. In Star Citizen, there is a ton more that you have to deal with and think about. Building places, I think this will actually make it more interesting for a lot of mainstream gamers. Yeah, it probably will. It's probably beneficial, ultimately. Get your friends together, go crew a ship. Again, though, like in Sea of Thieves, you take a galleon, and that's like top of the line, the best thing you can have. You can tackle all the content in the game with that. You and your friends, at the moment you take a multi-crew ship in Star Citizen, you're still all better off flying your own solo ships and not having to deal with any of that. There needs to be proper reasons and better reasons for you to take a bigger ship. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's one of those things. It's frustrating because, again, it feels like, Star Citizen putting the cart before the horse, and I feel like I say this all the time, but we haven't seen multi-crew ships reach any kind of real potential yet before we're giving them handicaps.
Misfires are something that is already in the game in some form. Thruster charges, seal generator failure, stuff like that. We're just expanding it a bit, and pretty much the idea is that, you know, items that are damaged, that are too hot, or that, for example, are very old and degraded, will start misfiring. In some cases, that will be that it will take some extra damage. In other cases, it will be that they will stop working for a while. Other times, they will work indefinitely until an engineer comes by and manages to do some repairs. And some of the worst cases would be starting a fire, or in the case of, for example, power plants, engaging in a critical reactor failure and taking the ship with them.
There was a chance that if the power plant reaches 0 health, it will run into a critical failure, and that critical failure then will cause the entire ship to explode.
Oh no.
It will give the player the time frame to react to that. So either by removing the component and throwing it out of the door and preventing your ship to explode, or even countering it by repairing the component and bringing it up to life again.
Okay.
For the initial release, we have a limited amount of misfires, but we are preparing the system, or we did prepare the system to scale well for the future, so we can introduce multiple misfires, and that leads us to damage penetration.
So
interesting. Misfires we had a very long time ago, and it was nothing but tedious. I don't know if smaller ships should have to deal with so much engineering issues and misfires. I think you should be mostly free from that kind of stress if you're flying smaller ships. Their thing should be that they're a lot more fragile. They take maelstrom damage a lot easier, much easier, right? Physicalized damage, blowing off wings, blowing off pieces of the ship that they need, versus taking a few stray shots and getting misfires and engine problems and stuff in a small ship. I don't know, to me, just becomes annoying. Plus, small ships, they should be easier to basically destroy, right, and put out of action versus having little misfires and things to deal with. Don't know, it's one thing having a big multi-crew ship where you've got crew all on it and they can immediately go and deal with it on the ship. Being in a single-seat fighter and just getting like hit with a few stray rounds, flying around for 30 minutes, 45 minutes before you get into some action, then having to immediately go back and get that misfiring engine dealt with. Torque imbalances on takeoff, just, I don't know. Smaller ships, don't need so much of that, in my opinion. I think misfires and things like that would have to be more, for a smaller single-seater, would have to be some sort of drastic level of damage. For single-seaters, bigger ships, where it's more important that you got to maintain them, like an Ares, right? Like a single-seater Ares, specialized ships with more going on for them, more potential components and things, bigger components maybe, but Gladius, and it's one of those things where everyone in your org is like, hey man, we're going to go do this big fight. It's going to be epic. We're going to have fun. We're going to this area to take part in this battle. Do you want to come? And then all these possibilities run through your mind of all the things that could go wrong and the things that could happen, and you just say, fuck it, I'll go play something else. Yeah, man, I'll go commit 3 hours in my dogfighter and get involved with you guys, and then leave the hangar and get shot with a few ballistic stray rounds, and then I'm out of the fight because half my engines are misfiring.
Damage penetration, it's a
they might talk about it a little bit more.
Of what we'll be getting eventually with a more physicalized system, but essentially what it means is that now certain types of weapons can penetrate through the hull of a ship. This is a function of the weapon itself, its penetration values, and also of the armor of the ship, which can be depleted over time.
So if you use ballistics, you have a higher penetration, which allows you to cut through the armor more deeply and touch the components inside the ship directly. As opposed to this, you also have energy weapons, which will be more effective at melting down the armor.
The goal here is that you first...
Oh, sorry. Got to replay that a little bit. More effective at doing what now?
And also of the armor of the ship, which can be depleted over time.
So if you use ballistics, you have a higher penetration, which allows you to cut through the armor more deeply and touch the components inside the ship directly. As opposed to this, you also have energy weapons, which will be more effective at melting down the armor.
Okay, so again, this is old school. The old school, how they used to describe energy weapons would melt the armor.
The goal here is that you first need to bring down the armor health value to get to the fullest potential of your penetrating weapons. Then you can penetrate the ship and actually damage the components that sit inside the ship and not on the outside of the hull.
Obviously, there's degrees to this. Larger ballistic weapons may have enough penetration against smaller ships that it will be able to penetrate directly, but it's all of a game of choices, and it's going to depend on your ships and your weapons.
So with damage penetration and misfires happening, that brings us to repair.
As your fight progresses and components take damage in your ship, it becomes the duty of some of your crew members to first investigate what are the issues caused by battle damage and go there to physically replace the parts in your ship.
So you have your multi-tool, so you have the salvage and repair, and the repair part of it also affects now ship components, precisely like what you see in the Arena Commander module.
Cool.
You will be able to repair items that were fully destroyed. You will not be able to repair the item to its fullest, so you cannot repair an item that got fully destroyed to 100% health again. So to repair your ship components to the fullest, you actually have to bring them to the shop again and do the station repair. Or if you did think ahead and brought spare items with you, you can simply exchange them to pristine new ones. But with the caveat, it only works, just as a reminder, for size 1 and size 2 components. Size 3 and above cannot be exchanged using the tractor beam detach and attach mode. So now that we looked at...
So size 3 components you have to do essentially in a dock at a base. At a outpost. You can't just boot your hammerhead back up, replacing the power supply. No. So the big ships can't be fixed up out in the open. So they'd have to be towed back to a dry dock, a space dock, an outpost, which is fine. That gives tow gameplay more prominence. It makes people, flying around in the SRVs, gives them another reason to go out and grab people who are stranded in big ships. I wonder if these hit different thresholds where they can't be repaired beyond. Just like players get injuries in the game that can't be healed. Do components get injuries? Do they take unrepairable damage? So you're constantly, the more damaged it gets, it's just crossing different thresholds where it obviously just becomes progressively more and more difficult to keep it healed up and repaired.
what your responsibilities are in the physical space running around in your ship. Let's take a look at what you do on the virtual
Yes.
part, which is power management.
Bless
and
the machine
analysis
spirit
of your
gifts.
ship on the engineering screen. So the first thing that you will see is the 3D view of your ship that highlights the location of all the ship components and how they are actually connected, where the relay positions are, what's the status of the relays are. You will see the holograms of each component.
As you can see, they have different colors. What they are representing is the overall state of the item. So an item that is very damaged, or it's on fire, or it's not getting enough power will be in a critical state. Items that are less damaged, are receiving only partial resources, or are going through a misfire, may have moderate colors. And items that are otherwise fine will have the functional or blue colors.
The biggest change that happened to the engineering UI screen is basically the power management part of it. We moved away completely from slider control for every individual item.
Good.
There is indicator now for fuel. This is not relevant for the initial release, but it will be relevant for the future. Next to it, you see the power plant. The power plant segments gives you an idea of how many power segments you can distribute to the ship items.
And on the right of
Little bit again. Isn't that a little bit how Starfield did it? Like with Starfield, I think like the bigger your ship, the more sort of power you had to distribute across the three different categories that you had. We said in the last INC that they seem to have taken a little bit of inspiration from Starfield when it came to the MFDs and the UI, and this confirms it because that's how Starfield did it, and it was simple. It worked. That's a lot like how they did it. What's up, Sneak? Hope you're well, dude. Most space games, I believe, they have this in Elite Dangerous. Oh, do they? It's in Elite Dangerous as well. See, I don't play a huge amount of space games, surprisingly. Or maybe it's surprising. Star Citizen is, it's ruined me for a lot of other space games. I did play Starfield, obviously, but FPL has UI like that. Star Trek Bridge Crew used a brick power system also. Well, and here we are. Well, at least, this hasn't been released officially. It's always been in an experimental, iterative phase. So I think this looks good. I'm fine with it being this way. It looks good, works well. If every other game is doing it, thank God Star Citizen is taking a leaf out of other games books and just applying it to their own game instead of trying to reinvent the wheel here. Although, no doubt they tried. Very true. You can get the LCARS vibe on it. That's true. That's sort of LCARS style.
each of the power bars, you can generally see the temperature bar. If it goes into overheating, the item will stop both consuming or producing, and it will be completely inoperable until it cools down again. So that means that assigning power to your coolers in advance is probably a good idea if you are going into a fight.
Coolers will hopefully be
generate heat. So this is where you can see the amount of heat that each item has accumulated, and you can see the amount of coolant that you are producing and whether or not you are also running a deficit. So what you want to do is put as much power as you can into the coolers until your items do not overheat, but do not assign more resources than necessary because you are running a limited pool of resources.
The same applies to the life support generators. So you have to make sure that you produce enough life support resource that the demand is fulfilled in your ship. If your demand isn't fulfilled, it will cause some failures.
There's also a notifications panel. Here the main warnings about the state of the ship will be displayed. If an item is damaged, doesn't get enough power, or is misfiring,
that's nice.
It will create a warning. You will be able to see it as a notification. Take a look at it, go to the item, or just remove it.
That's nice. It's you know, just having that there visually, whack-a-mole style, not having to actually focus as hard, looking at everything, looking for those systems that went down. We have that a little bit in Arena Commander where if you're on the engineering panel, you're like, oh God, this is down and that's down over there. This is with that list, you can kind of just easily see everything straight away and then delegate, prioritize from there. That seems like a nice quality of life feature that CIG's actually had the foresight to implement, which is nice.
So you have an option that allows you to basically log the controls so that you or the pilot, which has access to the MFD, which shares some of the power management functionality, do not conflict with your controls. So by locking this, you are able to override the MFD settings to only have it being authoritative from the engineering station.
You are able to take the power assignment you have at a given time and save it locally on your computer, meaning that when you fly again with the ship, or even if it's not your ship but somebody else's ship, you can quickly apply your presets. This is very useful in the middle of combat.
Oh, that's so good! That's great! That's a cool thing. That's a cool system right there. If you're an engineer, somebody brings you onto their multi-crew ship, you can fire up your like wacky scientist, wacky engineer own presets because you're an experienced engineer and you've built up all these different presets over the years and you kind of know how to best run certain ships. You have experience with certain ships and engineering on certain ships. You've actually built up like your own multiple presets. I guess you could have multiple presets for different situations that you're going into or different situations you encounter as well. I like that. Hey, DTOX, here's my preset I recommend you use when you want to fight Avenger 1. Yeah, exactly. So meta? What do you mean meta? You mean like people just have meta presets? Or am I misinterpreting that? Yes, meta presets? Yeah, probably. But there's so many different multi-crew ships. It would be different for every one. And you'd still need to... I guess you could essentially sell or share presets with your friends. I imagine this would be a file like your control mappings or like your character creator files. You could share your preset files with other players and they could load them in if they wanted to. But yeah, I mean, you still have to do active management. The presets are only there to get you started or respond to certain situations. You'll still need to be a good player and a good engineer, or at least have some experience as an engineer to be effective. Yeah, different components is exactly. There's loads of different variables that would change a preset. Not as simple as always just loading up the same preset. There are so many dynamic parts of the gameplay, combat, industrial, that you definitely need to adapt to overcome. Yeah. But the presets are a nice quality, again, a quality of life feature. We don't get many of them from CIG, so take it. Take it, everybody. Right. That's nice. I think it's a good thing. I remember they mentioned this a long time ago, saying it was a possibility. Glad to see it's actually a thing that looks like it might even come with a Tier 0 iteration.
You can quickly switch to a combat preset where you will give, for example, more power to shields, weapons, and thrusters. Or at the same time, you may want to have some nap mode preset where you reduce the power to everything and just put it on the bare minimum so there's no degradation or misfires.
It even has its own freaking...
So you can set a preset on your ship and then jump on somebody else's ship and load it up?
Indeed. Your presets are stored locally, so as long as you have access to the screen and you're using the same ship, you can apply a preset. Obviously, if the components have changed or the ship has a different loadout, the preset might not apply perfectly and you might need to adjust it, but it gives you a quick baseline on how your power is assigned.
That's pretty good.
We hope that with these changes, players will have more valuable opportunities to experience the game. We'll encounter more situations where it feels relevant and enjoyable to have multi-crew gameplay in the ships, so that you do not think it's just about filling in the battle positions like the turrets and the pilot seats, but it's more involved gameplay to actually manage your ships and try to fix the ongoing situations that occur within them. And we also hope that this makes larger vehicles which have more interior space both more troublesome but also more enjoyable to play with.
We are
Don't
still
tell me-
working hard
don't
to
tell me
get
that,
it
Q-Pen.
done for all of you. There are ships that already have the functionality. There are still ships that we are working on. But overall, we are super excited to finally get it into the PU. So the Arena Command experimental mode was already fun to observe what you can do with the entire system. And now with having the feedback from that, adjusting the gameplay a little from the feedback that we received from you, I am really looking forward to see what you all will be doing with it.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that there's a sweet new interface for dedicated engineering terminals aboard spacecraft. That the first implementation of armor and damage penetration means that the ways that you kill and keep your spaceships alive will fundamentally change. And that when this arrives in the PU, life aboard spaceships will never be the same again. Now, that's it for this season of Inside Star Citizen, while everybody here turns their focus towards the upcoming CitizenCon, where we'll be showcasing the future of Star Citizen beyond Alpha 4.0.
Go! Get the copium, everybody. He said it. He said it. Get the copium. Beyond 4.0.
Yes, it's a show you're not going to want to miss. So from the small team that makes every ISC, thank you so much for letting us stretch our proverbial wings this year. Thank you for continuing to let us share the people and process of game development with you, and we'll see you all back here after the big show. I can't believe we got to...
God, I thought I closed it by accident then or something. What the hell is going on? Nuts. Absolutely nuts. Thank you, everybody. Good IC. Thanks for watching with me.